Welcome once again to Auto Mundial, the weekly home of all the latest motoring news and reviews. This week, the Polo may be en route to exit stage left, but today it celebrates 50 years as a star of the Volkswagen show.
We've also got our first look at the all-new and refreshed Isuzu D-Max.
Plus more power and more gimmicks is the name of the game with Hyundai's IONIQ 5N.
That's all coming up. First though, the news.
$175,000. That is the price tag for the all-new Corvette ZR1, unveiled last year. But as part of the Barrett-Jackson Scottsdale auction, Chevrolet offered up the first production chassis of its most powerful Corvette ever made, reaching a significantly higher sum. With all proceeds going to the American Red Cross in support of communities affected by recent natural disasters, the hammer eventually fell on chassis number 1 at the eye-widening sum of $3.7 million. Now, this is not the first time that a Corvette sporting chassis number 1 has reached ridiculous money at auction, with the 2023 Corvette Z06 70th Anniversary Edition also hitting that same record-breaking number in 2022. In fact, over the years, C8 generation Corvettes have raised almost $30 million for charity at auctions like this, and we look forward to seeing what the next major sale will be.
The Isuzu D-Max has been with us for over 20 years now. One of Britain's favourite workhorses, it's a model that we've tested a few times on Auto Mundial. Last year its off-road ability impressed us, as did its four-wheel drive system and surprisingly nice cabin, but we weren't so keen on the automatic gearbox and feeling of on-road buoyancy. And when Isuzu invited us to try out the new one, we simply couldn't say no. Launched on an old World War II airfield, Isuzu likened the new D-Max to an RAF training plane, the de Havilland Chipmunk, for its dependability, ability and practicality. Certainly the D-Max can very much be described as practical, dependable and able, we shall see. So what is new for this third-gen D-Max? At the front, the D-Max gets a larger radiator grille, bonnet and bumper for a more muscular look. High beam assist and integrated indicators come from an updated lighting design, whilst the air vents and fog lamps have also been remodelled with a sleeker design. Cab configurations vary across the range. Utility spec D-Maxes get either a single, extended or double cab, while DL20, DL40 and V-Cross trim levels are available in extended or double cab form only. One of the big updates for the new D-Max is the reversing camera, which comes as standard and features cross-traffic alert. Other standard aids include cruise control, traffic jam assist, road sign recognition and lane keeping assist. Inside, the D-Max gets a driver display and an uprated infotainment system of varying sizes, complete with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. We found it easy to navigate and quick to respond, especially compared with the old system. Seats can be spec'd with either cloth or leather, while all models get a newly designed steering wheel bezel and door trim insert. Other creature comforts on higher spec models include dual climate control, heated seats, USB ports and a wireless charger. Meanwhile, the D-Max remains unchanged from the previous generation, with all models getting a 4-cylinder 1898cc diesel engine with 161 brake horsepower. It is available with an automatic or manual transmission. The power plant is especially torquey at low revs, but the automatic transmission continues to let the side down with lazy upshifts. Happily, the manual is much better, especially for off-roading, where the D-Max particularly shines. Despite sitting on standard road tyres, the D-Max had no problem tackling the most treacherous of terrain, navigating flooded sections and slippery slopes with ease. Keep the engine in the power band and nothing seemed to stop the D-Max off-road. Equally, the new rough terrain mode helps to provide traction and stability on off-road surfaces. On-road, however, the D-Max proved to be a handful. The auto transmission made the whole experience feel lethargic and reluctant to change gear even when persuaded with human interference. Aside from the transmission, we found that the D-Max does a poor job of hiding its heft, and so handling is not its strong suit. Okay for driving between wide open farm fields, but not ideal for a daily commute into civilization. But equip your D-Max with a manual gearbox and enough creature comforts, and there's few better options out there for the price, starting at £27,500 before VAT. For the money, you would indeed be hard-pressed to find anything as dependable, able and practical.
A small city car popular with the masses thanks to a fantastic combination of charm and affordability. We're not talking about the Golf here. With its mid-sized proportions and sporty alter ego, our vision of the modern people's car is something far smaller and accessible to the nation, and this year the Volkswagen Polo celebrates its 50th birthday. The Polo may have first launched some half a century ago in 1975, but it is still going strong, regularly sitting among the top 10 best-selling cars in the UK each year, narrowly beating out the onslaught of affordable crossovers. Fitting a tighter package than its Golf cousin, the Polo sports just as dainty decoration in this, its 6th generation. From an angular front end to boxy rear dimensions and even an attempt at a grown-up sloping roof. In fact, the whole car feels slightly more mature than its EconoBox rivals that very much cater to the simplistic needs of younger drivers. The Polo, however, is the city car for everyone. Inside, everything feels that little bit finer than other rivals, with heavier doors, firmer seats and a good collection of standard equipment. Sure, there are some scratchy plastics to contend with, but that allows you a near Golf experience for less than £20,000. Despite its popularity and our adoration for the little city car, it seems its days are very much numbered due to ever-tightening emission laws and restrictions. Rules like the ZEV mandate and restrictive CO2 targets mean Volkswagen can no longer profit from smaller combustion-powered models. And with no sign of traditional names like Polo making their way to the manufacturer's EV range, we fear this may be one of the last birthdays for the nation's adopted people's car. So let's enjoy this one while we can.
After the break, Mazda proves the low-slung, elegant saloon still has life left in it.
Welcome back. Coming up, a bit of Larry fun aboard an all-electric mega hatch.
Streamlined, graceful and understated. In the luxury SUV world, the Range Rover is undoubtedly the ultimate representation of British sophistication.
Crossed to the other side of the pond, however, and with its overwhelming size and brash looks that you couldn't run away from if you wanted to, the Cadillac Escalade is the epitome of American excess. But for the 2025 model year, the infamous opulent barge has received a refresh, so we wonder if it's finally growing a sense of delicatesse. Well, from the outside, the simple answer is no. It's still the same outlandish and blinged up box on wheels that we doubt would fit on a British motorway, let alone a tight B-road. but dive beneath the surface of its range of powertrains, may we suggest otherwise. A benefit of Cadillac's assault on the European market is its push towards cleaner power sources, meaning this new Escalade both drops its old diesel unit and gets an all-electric IQ variant. But for the benefit of comparison to the UK's Range Rover, petrol-burning fanatics will no doubt enjoy this 6.2-litre V8, pushing out 420 brake horsepower. If that isn't enough, the V-Series will strap a supercharger to that V8, sending it to 680 brake horsepower, so maybe its blood does still run with brute force after all. Though you may not get much time to enjoy it in between fuel stops, it's the Escalade's interior that really makes it the special bit of kit it's famous for. 7 seats, all of which look pretty worthy of a place in your living room, make up the Caddy's cabin, decorated with plush leathers, high-quality metals and nice wood trim. If the 55-inch display across the dashboard is too much for you, you certainly won't like the additional further screens for rear passengers or the climate control tablet. Each of these connect to the up to 40 speakers and get phone connectivity, streaming services and anything else you would expect from your local tech store. Adding to the cabin's comfort is Cadillac's active suspension system, ensuring ride height adapts to any bump or nook in the road for a stable and smooth driving experience.
But when you think of adaptive dampening and a smooth ride aboard a luxury SUV, there should be only one manufacturer that springs to mind. Range Rover models have featured pneumatic air suspension systems for decades, providing the impression of gliding along the roads, regardless of how many potholes plague our UK streets. While this system has previously been known for its unreliability, the manufacturer has seemingly improved its air suspension setup. Though, instead, it is now Jaguar Land Rover's engine offerings that suffer from poor longevity, and as such, we would recommend steering clear of the diesel offerings. That leaves you with a collection of 3-litre petrols, ranging from 360 to a 550 brake horsepower plug-in hybrid, or a pair of circa 600 bhp V8s. We would suggest the P460e, a plug-in hybrid with, you guessed, 460 ponies going to all 4 wheels. Certainly not as beefy as the Cadillac, it is efficient and best affirms the Range Rover's grown-up persona versus its American rival. Here in the UK, we will never get our hands on the Escalade, given its New World proportions. But in America, you can pick one up for around $90,000, some $10,000 less than the Range Rover. Whether or not the added British class is worth the money, we're not quite sure.
Launched last year, the Peugeot 408 perplexed much of the automotive world with its unique shape, bridging the gap between the old ways and today's most prominent automotive class. Pairing a higher ride height with sleeker body dimensions is a return to the old guard of low-slung saloon cars, representing a refusal to adhere to the market's current trend of oversized SUVs with typically clumsy looks. And it seems the French manufacturer has set off quite the craze, as now Mazda is joining the mid-saloon, mid-SUV fun with this, the all-new Mazda 6e.
Where its French counterpart goes for a tall ride height with a stubby body in its quest for a less bulbous design, the 6's design philosophy sees its body running far closer to the ground in a sporty stance. Though fans of the space on offer from crossovers will be pleased to know that a taller body still offers a higher driving position than your more dynamic model. In its newest form, the 6 is very much a case of evolution over revolution, getting a recognisable face to other Mazda offerings with its gaping grille, under-biting front splitter and squinting headlights. The rear also adapts cues you would expect from the Mazda 3 hatchback onto a saloon body shape for an attractive model from most angles. Under the alluring body lies a choice of either a 69 or 80 kilowatt-hour battery in what is set to be just the second full EV in the Mazda lineup after the MX-30's slapdash zero-emission variant. With 300 and 345 miles of range on offer respectively, either unit will far outdo the crossover's 124 miles. In either case, power goes to the rear wheels only, with around 250 brake horsepower at your disposal, meaning 0 to 62 takes just over 7.5 seconds. Nice figures for a comfy cruiser with the ability to get up and go when required. Inside, you get a fantastically bright cabin thanks to a vast sunroof and the large windows, thanks to the model's taller body. Lovely upholstery decorates a pair of thin front seats, making for spacious rear seating in what is a well thought out cabin. The stylish centre console and dashboard are missing physical buttons for our liking, with most features instead hiding within the centrally mounted 14.6-inch tablet. Only just unveiled internationally, we won't be getting our hands on this new Mazda saloon until 2026, but we feel it will be worth the wait if it's anything like its hatchback cousin, the Mazda 3.
As for the 6's only true rival at this time, the Peugeot 408 also had us gravitating towards its pioneering design when it launched last year. Though, as we mentioned earlier, it almost resembles more of an Audi all-road in its lifted stunts compared to the Mazda's tall cabin. This does mean that interior space doesn't feel quite as generous as aboard the Japanese entrant, especially when factoring in Peugeot's traditional tight packaging. Indeed, the interior does seem to hug its occupants far more. Whilst there are petrol-burning powertrains with hybrid tech, this is the 210 brake horsepower EV with a 58 kilowatt-hour battery. Slightly smaller on the battery front than the incoming Mazda, France's offering will only manage 280 miles on a charge, some 20 fewer than the least efficient Mazda 6. With its marginally less impressive range figures and lack of its rival's opulence inside, there is no doubt that the Peugeot E408 will come out at a lower price than the Mazda. In fact, the French model is currently available from £42,000 in a basic trim, and whilst the Mazda is still a year away from market launch, we expect it to cost closer to the £50,000 mark.
Earlier this year, we took a look at one of the most hotly anticipated hot hatches of 2025 in the form of the Alpine A290. 220 brake horsepower to the front wheels, lift-off oversteer and great looks, it certainly had us excited for the onset of electric hot hatches. But what does the world of zero-emission mega hatches have to offer? Well, setting itself up as a firm pioneer in the class, looking to overshadow the Audi RS3s and Mercedes A45 AMGs of this world, is this, the Hyundai IONIQ 5N. And it's fair to say that if this is anything to go by, the future of the mega hatch is also pretty safe. What you're looking at here is a family city car with over 640 all-wheel drive brake horsepower. Yes, you heard that right. 641 is the total figure, with the standard model's 223 bhp long-range motor accompanied by a further 378 brake unit on the rear axle. Manage to put that power to the floor without spinning the wheels, and the car will 0 to 60 in just 3.5 seconds. 100 miles an hour comes just 5 seconds later, and the N will top out at 160. If you fancy spinning the wheels, this bonkers creation can certainly do that with its so-called drift optimizer mode, though we'd expect the 230-mile range to drop rather fast. If the standard drop-your-foot-and-go style of EV driving bores you, Hyundai has developed a software-based gearbox that simulates a paddle-shift transmission. Run through the virtual revs to redline and the computer will halt your acceleration. Flick the up lever and away you go once more. Definitely a gimmick in theory. We like the idea that the South Korean manufacturer is catering to us driving enthusiasts as best it can. Though the segment is growing, there are very few performance EVs on the market today and even fewer sitting below the £100,000 mark. So, available from £65,000, the Hyundai IONIQ 5N certainly represents fantastic ability for the money.
Next time on Auto Mundial, the Ford Mustang goes from the road to the track, and now back to the road.